Masters in the semi-finals already, and 2 still to play, and kind of 3 if you count XHope. But I'm not going to count him. We're going to see if we get 4 Grandmasters through. And with me to find out who gets through this particular one is Gia. And Gia, who do you think is going to get this one done?
Man, of course, I have to be a little bit biased for Bunnyhoppor, having known him for a very, very long time. And of course, people make the arguments that he may very well be the best player in the whole world. But X-Hope's achievements cannot be overlooked whatsoever. He has performed very well in China's equivalent of the Grandmaster system and also in open tournament circuits for many, many years now. And so far as to his play in this tournament, I've been very impressed with what I've been seeing.
Yeah, he's struggled a little bit this year at Grandmasters, but that's because of his weird lineups. There is the whisper on the streets, and this is why there's a Totem Shaman in this lineup, but he's in the top 8, so maybe he will silence the critics a little bit with this, and even the Control Demon Hunter is not necessarily the most normal deck.
Indeed. For what I have cast so far in this tournament, I have to say Totem Shaman hasn't really proved its slot in the meta from what I've seen, but the Control Demon Hunter has been brought by several people and had results that are pretty impressive, I have to say, but it is not an easy deck to pilot. A very memorable game yesterday between Eddie and Just Saiyan showed that even a control expert like Eddie is not necessarily familiar with all of the ins and outs of the deck, so I'm hoping to see if XHope can prove that he knows this stuff. Over on Bunnyhoppors, and it is a much more standard lineup with the Questlock Highlander Hunter and the Rogue package in there. Of course, Rogue being one of the most high-performing classes in the tournament, but it's this Highlander Hunter that I think will be bread and butter for Bunnyhoppor.
Yeah, no, Alex is the fairly big deal in his Highlander Hunter, but that lineup is the one that Darek is calling the lineup, with the Warlock, the Hunter, the Rogue, and of course the Warrior. And I can't argue that. I'd love to argue that because Derek's been poking at me all day, but on this occasion he has actually got to be right for once. But looking at the Eddie Control Demon Hunter here from XHope, this is the deck that's going to have to get it done, and we have seen this deck struggle a little bit.
Indeed. I guess it's not really fair to call it the Eddie Control Demon Hunter if it's also gotten some popularity in a region that's pretty insular, I have to say, over in China. Maybe that they came up with the similar concept and ended up with very similar lists. The bread and butter for the deck is the Magtheridon into board clear combo for that really, really powerful tempo swing. But in certain matchups, the 12-12 is no problem, so they would end up falling back on the continuous damage from the Warglaves of Azeroth and the Horde Pillager for a third copy.
It is also worth pointing out that these two players are familiar with each other because Liquid, where Bunnyhoppor represents, are also in the Gold Team Championships in China. They're the Western representative, if you like, to go with the 7 Chinese teams. I think the Chinese community like to see a bit of what's going on from outside and take on the best in the world. So they did a pretty good job of it, but LP did not, and this will bring them some much-needed cheer. LP, I thought they played fantastic with XHope, Trunks, and Omega Zero and VVV. Some blasts from the past there, but I felt they'd all really got going again, but they didn't get it done this time around. So there'll be a lot of people in China wanting this one to go XHope's way. But Bunnyhoppor is not the person you want in your way at this stage of a tournament.
Nor is his lineup, I have to say, because I'm not sure where that Shaman can sneak in a win. Traditionally, if there were a Druid on the other side, or maybe even Priest to some extent, I would think Shaman has a chance to stick totems here and there, but against a Rogue that gets on the board relatively quick, and if they don't, they have backstabs and lackey tools to deal with all those early totems, and then the quest lock, maybe the Rogue, the Shaman can sneak in a win there, but between all the AoE and single target removal, I have a hard time seeing it. And same thing with Hunter, they got on the board very early. So name of the game versus Shaman, of course, is just making sure the board is clear every single time. You can see though, for the first 2 quarterfinals, the results have been in favor of the GMs over in the GM we know of, at least, but because China does have their own Grandmaster system, and I'm pretty sure both Lee and XHope are very well represented there.
But you know who is loving how this is going so far, and he hasn't even played yet today, is Letta. Because with the other 7 players either being out or Grandmasters already, Letta is the one who just stands to go miles ahead in the the race for promotion for both Season 4 and Season 5. This is the fourth season for Season 4, but also counts towards Season 5. It might be 5 and 6. Who knows? I can't count that high.
Yeah. But, no, that's correct, Lorinda.
But Leto will be putting himself in a fantastic position if he can get through a couple of rounds, even just getting to the final. Just because there's no challenges for what he's trying to achieve, which isn't just winning the tournament, but getting promotion to take on these players on a more regular basis.
You bring up a very good point, Lorinda, but Leto happens to be from the European region, where the total prize pools prior to this tournament were significant multiples higher than the top prize earners over in Americas and APAC. But I mean, it's a very good point that Grandmaster, or the better they do, the less people outside of the current system have to win in order to get promoted. That is, if the GMs don't relegate during their own seasons. But I'm pretty sure with names like Alatami and Bunny, I don't think the non-GMs have to worry about GMs taking their spots for promotion, no matter how weird that sounds. We are starting the series, though. Bunnyhoppor on his Highlander Hunter first, and XHope is queuing up one of these X factors of a deck, the Control Demon Hunter.
Yeah, and I feel that this Hunter might be what XHope needs to beat 3 times to get through here. I think that the Shaman will have a chance against it from what I've looked up, because the Shaman does sometimes just go wide and the Hunter can't quite remove everything. And if the Shaman does establish a foothold, it can get it done. But not so much fun opening up with the Demon Hunter here, of course. Going to have to time that lifesteal extremely well from XHope's side.
That's right. Just from my first glance, inclination is to give the favor to Hunter, because it is kind of an anti-control deck, just the way it curves out and has very greedy top end. I should say very greedy usually, but Bunnyhoppor's version is not running the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, as you mentioned. So that might be one tick in favor of the Demon Hunter here. That's one less set of threats that he needs to worry about clearing. And Bunnyhoppor's opening hand is, I would say, good if he was to be the responder, but he wants to be the aggressor. And at the very least, Scavenger's Ingenuity should give him a key threat to put down on turn 3.
Although XHope, who a little bit hard to recognise without his hat, is victim to a pretty grim opening hand of his own here. We might even have to see him, I don't know, we'll have to see him force through one way or the other to get this Spectral Sight going, I suspect.
That's right. The Eldrazi Warblades, while a very good defensive tool, I don't think he wants to be playing them when he's at full health and not getting the full value out of that lifesteal, because this is one of the best ways for him to shore up his health total, the other being I-Beam with the help of Morg Artificer. And the Eldrazi Warblades, of course, the benefit is maximized when you have the Twin Slices and the Blade Dance to go along with it. But that is a very welcome top deck for XHope. Second Spectral Sight in the outcast position gives him something much better to do this turn.
Yeah, something to actually do that isn't wasting time or mana. That's pretty good for him. And I feel like this game might come down to the Vulpera Scoundrels to some degree. They're very, very good in this deck. They're kind of the driving force in this version of Demon Hunter, because they're so versatile. You can change your plan very easily with a Scoundrel, again, in this version, not so much in the Tempo one.
Apex Predator was picked up as the guaranteed beast for Bunnyhoppor because he top-decked the Diving Griffin on the turn he played Scavenger's Ingenuity, and I think that is definitely between the two beasts that you want to buff up. The Zixor is a lot more durable, doesn't die to just an I-Beam, which a 6/3 Griffin would have, and so Bunny is going to develop that threat.
And I think he wanted to consume magic there. There's one main in his deck anyway, and we've seen how good it's been. Yeah. And I feel that he was after hitting it there because he's in a world of trouble, not just by taking damage from the Zixor, but the Zixor Prime that comes from it is almost impossible to deal with as well, apart from
impatient.
Well, Chaos Nova lines up pretty well against Zixor Prime, so if you're not taking the Plan A solution of Consume Magic right now, maybe he can take a Chaos Nova for Plan B. But honestly, all of these choices have some merit to them. I would lean the most against Inner Demon, because this is not a matchup where you are looking to beat down the Hunter, I would say. It's a matchup where you're trying to clear board after board. And so we see XHope taking another Chaos Nova alongside the one natural copy in his deck. I was going to say 2 immediately, but I guess not every Control Demon Hunter has the full suite of AoE.
Yeah, this is a lot of ones in this deck. The Consume Magic, Horde Pillager, Chaos Nova, the Spell King, plus obviously the legendary cards. So, won't be Sottle's favourite build, I wouldn't have thought. Sometimes a sign of very, very good tuning, and sometimes a sign of indecision. We'll have to wait and see which that is as this unfolds.
Yeah, also worth noting that because XHope already saw the Scavenger's Ingenuity, there's no possibility for the Zixars to get buffed up to 6/6 once it's in Prime version. But I guess XHope should be worrying about the first half to begin with, because Bunnyhoppor has already played his Guardian Og Merchant to make sure that this 4 attack minion will be as annoying to remove possible. And for XHope, I'm not seeing a very convenient option to deal with it right now. He could pre-equip the Eldraki War Blades, but that's a lot of damage in the meantime. This goes back to another point of decision for XHope on the previous turn. Maybe the I-Beam could have helped him get some immediate single target removal over the Chaos Nova, especially with his Morg in hand.
I do feel, though, that you have to trust that you're going to get your natural cards, so even though it's worked out badly, it's going to work out badly when you're facing a 4/5 Divine Shield quite often. So you have to trust your deck to find the right stuff to deal with that, and then have your leftovers deal with everything else. But this does look like it might just go all the way.
And the Divine Shield was a two-sided threat for XHope, I have to say. Not only does it make the Zixar untargetable by the first wave of targeted removal, it also just makes it so that if XHope wanted to swing into the Zixar to kind of soften it up, he wouldn't be getting the lifesteal from the Eldraki War Blades on the first swing, which is a very big deal. So we saw XHope actually take out the Guardian Og Merchant instead there, even though it looks like he wanted to follow up with Chaos Nova. So he seems to be really relying on either the card off the top or this Volpera to give him more options. There's another chance at Consume Magic.
Bunnyhoppor, though, just got so many things going on. Going to be able to blow up the weapon, but also setting up a huge Faceless Corruptor for next turn. If this Zixor's still on the board, obviously if it's gone, Faceless gets a lot worse because of the Chaos Nova in the deck.
Yes, indeed. I mean, Sottle and I have talked a lot about Rotnest Drake and its power, and even as just a 5-drop, it was an option there for Bunnyhoppor. Keep the pressure going, still at the 5 health mark and outside of just Chaos Nova range. But Bunnyhoppor prioritizes being able to play his Ooze and remove one of only 2 lifesteal weapons for XHope. So Bunnyhoppor is very much valuing his ability to stave off any healing from XHope.
Yeah, and XHope deep in the tank now, because he hasn't just got to work out how to solve the immediate problem, which is pretty difficult on its own, but he needs to work out 2 or 3 turns from now, what is he going to do about this Apex Predator? It's just never going away.
It really isn't. You mentioned the Consume Magic earlier on, and it seemed like XHope was holding out for hope on his best possible card to deal with it, but now it's gotten to the point where he's taken too much damage that he has to settle for mediocre removal options. So across 2 turns, the first Chaos Nova and possibly the second, alongside Twin Slice or Morg Artificer, can finally deal with the Predator, but that's a win in Bunnyhoppor's book for sure.
Yeah, he's got so much damage done already. Obviously, there's still big health gains available for XHope, so Bunnyhoppor's going to be a bit careful. And I am curious to see how he plays this turn, because it's not a clean turn. These are the turns that good Hunter players really show their edge in, as far as I understand it.
Yeah. Well, from Bunnyhoppor's perspective, he's seen the one of natural Chaos Nova in the deck, so it's very tempting just to summon a Locust and play your Faceless Corruptor to get 2 copies of it. And it does also still walk into certain threats like Blade Dance, so there's also a consideration for the Rotnest Drake, which is slightly higher health. Yeah, I think I would still lean towards the Faceless here.
There's not many targets for the Rotnest Drake, but can he deal with a 12/12 if he does put it onto the board? Something he might want to hold it back for later.
Very good point. Wow, he goes for the option I wasn't even looking at all, the slowest of the three, which is just play a Bone Chewer Brawler. Still a potential to be an annoyance for XHope, but also gets Bunnyhoppor to weave in his hero power. And I think this is a result of the way his hand is shaped, whereas you could see one substantial threat for this turn and perhaps another for the next turn, but on turns 8, 9, might have a lull in what he can actually put onto the board before the Grand Slam. So he's being extremely patient here. And now for XHope, he's picked up the Warglaze of Azzinoth, and with the Twin Slice, he can finally get through that Zixor. But it's going to be so painful.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage. And he's actually going to go the other way with a Horde Pillager just to get some board presence and some extra lifesteal effects.
Lifesteal is huge here. Also means he's putting off clearing the Zixor for yet another turn. And I think he is doing it this way mostly to give himself one more chance to top deck the Consume Magic, which is just a one-of in the deck.
Like, his shoulders slumped when he didn't hit Consume Magic on turn 3 from the Volpera. And you're seeing why now, because the minion that was there then is still here now. All this time later. It's done 20 damage or something after this turn.
And to be fair, it's not just the Consume Magic natural top deck that he can get. There's also the Cobalt Spellkin copy in here that can give him that card. For Bunnyhoppor, though, that is a pretty powerful draw in the Varanus. Also an option this turn for just an easy trade of his Locust into the Horde Pillager and a very threatening minion on board. However, based on how Bunnyhoppor played the last turn, I'd be inclined to say he's not in a rush to play his big and just go face. There will be some face action involved here, but I think weaving in the hero powers will also be playing in Bunnyhopper's mind. So with the Varanus draw, that represents a possible answer for Megatherodon that doesn't involve Rotnest Drake. So we could see the Drake come down here.
And I think he will, from what you said there. Like you say, it's another answer. He gets to weave in the two, that he's making a very conscious, obvious decision to weave. And setting up lethal now, going to be setting up lethal turn after turn.
Finally arrives, does the Consume Magic, but not before Zixor has done, what, 12 damage to XHope's face?
At least. Yeah, involving some trading along the way. And it's not over yet. In fact, it's almost upset XHope, because he's almost written this one off and he's just shaking his head like, where were you when I needed you most?
And he has now a way to clear everything off, but it is so expensive. The Moarg coin Chaos Nova, it's just because of that 5 health on the Rotnest Drake makes all the difference here. XHope can use a single Chaos Nova and face tank the 6, and yes, he heals for 2, but between Bunnyhoppor just being a hunter with that hero power, possibilities for kill command, Zephyrus in hand, I feel like XHope does not want to play so fast and loose with his health total.
Yeah, because he can come back. Like, we have seen later on, if you get a blur or something, you can do a lot of damage with one strike and gain a lot of health. And
again, this does look like another win for Bunnyhoppor, an overcommittal of resources, I would say, into the size of board. Overcommittal if you were at full health. I think XHope would not play that scared if he had taken less damage in the early game. And this is all the dividends paying off of putting the Divine Shield on him early on in the game. But now for Bunnyhoppor, this is a difficult turn. He has seen both Chaos Nova, so again, I'm leaning toward the Faceless Corruptor. But if you're going to corrupt the Locust from the Desert Spear, suddenly that makes one half of the Varanus combo unavailable should he expect a Magtherodon soon.
Yeah, and there's not much backup plan. I mean, there is the world where he can corrupt the Mage and just keep back the Varanus combo. If he thinks that the Grand Slam gets there on turn 10, that might just be the play. Play the Mage, play the Faceless, keep Varanus, weave in another hero power, and keep back that 12 damage for later.
Hero power is definitely the first thing on the menu for Bunnyhoppor here. If he wants to keep the Desert Spear charges for the Varanus combo, there was, of course, this option right here of transforming his Blazing Battle Mage instead. But this is the chance for XHope to turn it around. Blade Dance, a huge draw here. He's held on to the second slice. He can get the board clear and also have some spare mana to develop his Vulpera Scoundrel.
Yeah, just a case of trying to get as much health gain as possible when you do this, because you get 3 swings basically now that the Horde Pillager's gone, so need to make them count for the gain as well as the removal.
And you can fit in the hero power to make it a 10 total lifesteal on the minions. And then the extra swing face. But if he's not fitting in the hero power here, I can only assume he wants to play Metamorphosis instead. Or just re-equip Eldraki and get the Outcast. Okay.
It took him a long time to get that Spectral Sight to the left-hand side of his hand. And now he's shaking his head again because he's picked up that skull that's also going to take forever to get to play.
And Bunnyhoppor has held on to the Varanus as that emergency switch against Magtheridon for this long, but if he doesn't play it, suddenly he's not even pressuring XHope anymore. I think it's gotten to the point where it has to be a priority on threat chaining.
I agree.
Then again, though, if... Go ahead.
He's seen XHope have trouble clearing turn after turn, and XHope's played a Blade Dance the second he got it suddenly. I think you've just got to say, okay, if it all goes against me and I get a Magtheridon in the face here, that's just really unlucky. This Varanus seems like it should be played.
I wanted to say, then again, though, XHope is unlikely to be developing any threats of his own if Bunnyhoppor is not playing or forcing a response from him, I should say, with a Varanus. So there's the argument that he could hold off there and just go into a Grand Slam on a relatively clear board, but I think the fact that we've seen 2 Chaos Nova, a Blade Dance, and there's not enough mana for Magtheridon plus Warglaives to be an option just yet this turn, I like that Bunnyhoppor commits his Varanus.
Yeah, I think he'll be reasonably sure there's no I-Beam as well. He obviously doesn't know what the other 2 cards were that were top decked, but that's what he'd be going with. Oof.
Oof, indeed.
You never want to mystery choice, but this might be an occasion when you have to.
If only that were sooner. He was really praying for an IB in there, but at the very least, this is a draw to possibly get it. And that is terrible for XHope here. Just gonna go for a bit of lifesteal instead. But between the kill command in Bunnyhoppor's hand, the Grand Slam as well, and this Varanus sticking yet another turn, I'm not seeing very much hope for XHope in this game.
Just seeing no hope.
This is guaranteed, right? If he just kills the Zephyrus with his face and then plays Grand Slam.
Yeah, have to kill the Zephyrus to guarantee it, and then you get at least 3 hits into the face.
So the Desert Spear and Locust, or he can go like Locust and 1/3 into Zephyrus.
Sure.
Or you can go... Sure. I'm upset though. I'm pretty sure Grand Slam was the more fun way to do that in the end.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was too, although Bunnyhoppor is showing us that he had it covered 2 different ways. It's probably a message being sent to us in person.
Yes. Stupid, silly casters. Of course, he had a plan put together, even if XHope had gone wider on the board, is what he was trying to say there. But I don't think that is all too unexpected of an outcome. I would tend to put the anti-troll deck in the favor there in that specific matchup. But Demon Hunter could still have a place up against Bunnyhoppor's Rogue, although that matchup, I did see it go pretty much exactly the opposite way yesterday in Bunnyhoppor's own match as well.
Does hurt XHope's Shaman a little bit now the Hunter's through, though. From what I've seen, Shaman is slightly favoured in that matchup, or 50-50, let's say. But now the Hunter's gone, that Shaman's going to have to find a way to get it done against one of the other 2 removal-heavy decks, and oof, not so keen on that.
Yeah, I wonder if XHope will even feel like he has the momentum loss freedom to be queuing up Shaman first. If you expect that to be your weak link, I'm not sure if he wants to be queuing up the deck that's least likely to take him a win here. Of course, that's going into that dangerous territory of Conquest Q order, and we have all those arguments all the time. But personally, when I'm in the hot seat, I never like to queue up the deck that I feel is least likely to get me a win when it's on stream, when it's very limited opportunities for players from the Chinese region to get to play on the global stage, and when, of course, it is Bunnyhoppor relentlessly being your opponent there. I do think that XHope's Highlander Hunter is in a pretty good spot, though, for Bunnyhoppor's remaining decks. It's got a great matchup versus Questlock, and against Rogue, I would say not the worst. I'm still kind of back and forth. I would put as the favorite in that particular matchup.
Yeah, I keep hearing people say that the Rogue is favoured, and I just can't buy it. I think the Hunter's favoured, but maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong once or twice before. And your future WSOE opponents are probably all taking notes there about your queue order in Conquest.
Well, joke's on them. We played last hero standing in most of the WSOEs.
Superb.
All right. Highlander Hunter here. I'm not seeing anything too out of the ordinary. Elsewhere in the tournament, we've seen the Dragon version pop up here and there. Not Dragon Hunter, but the Dragon package in Highlander Hunter with the evasive Feywing Frizz Kindle Roost. Very combo and taking advantage of the Diving Griffin to pull out Evasive Worm, possibly. I do think that list has a lot of potential, but of course I wouldn't fault anyone for just playing the regular 30 cards for a tournament with very little time to prepare. But we are going to see that match is pretty highly contested here, and for Bunnyhoppor, I think he will be prioritizing tempo in the early game, because if Rogue can just make sure Hunter stays off the board turns 1, 2, and 3, I think that greatly improves their chances of winning later on.
Interesting, therefore, with that in mind, whether he keeps his Blackjack Stunner or not. Good in the middle game for getting rid of those big minions, but also is just a way of occupation early, but it's a little bit too tenuous. There's not many secrets to pick up.
Yeah. Bunnyhoppor's secret package is the 2-2, Ambush and Dirty Tricks, of course, Bamboozle, not really seeing play anymore in a deck with Questing Adventurers. But I think it's quite difficult to keep the Stunner without a secret. Yeah. But if that Galakrond were secretly, that is the high tempo opener available to Bunnyhoppor, Stunner and Shadow Step. But I think I'd be inclined for this to be a full toss.
And XHope getting greedier and greedier. Does actually throw the Dragon's Bane. We see these Hunter players now. They just try and get a handful of 4/1s and they only play 3.
2 is acceptable as well, I have to say. And Scavenger's Ingenuity is a huge one in pretty much every matchup if you're able to land it on the Zixor. And XHope has picked up his Diving Griffin. If he picks up Ingenuity, it's guaranteed to give Bunnyhoppor the same headache that Bunnyhoppor gave him last game.
Bunnyhoppor's got a headache, but this is why I wondered if he would keep the Blackjack Stunner, because this does deal with a 2-2 in its own right just by being played. It's just nothing like ideal, but you can jackpot it and get the secret at the same time. So,
yeah.
Interesting.
Good point. So looks like pretty straightforward.
I don't know. Yeah, wow. I thought he might.
All right. So obviously this is taking advantage of the fact that Bunnyhoppor's Seal Fate is not available just yet, and so it means just a dagger is not going to be enough to deal with this, but he can get the bad news that there's a backstab there for Bunnyhoppor.
But it's not a disaster, even though obviously it's not what he wanted, because next turn he does have Battle Mage tracking, so he's used the coin earlier than he would have liked, but he's not wasted it completely. He's still going to be able to at least spend all of his mana for a few turns in a row.
It's true. Playing tracking there doesn't feel ideal, but it crucially can give him a better option for turn 3. I don't think the Diving Griffin trading into a 1-2 is what he would opt for here. The question is for Bunnyhoppor whether he wants to face tank the 4 damage to preserve his 1-2, and in this particular matchup where board presence is so important and Bunnyhoppor only has one other playable minion in the near future in his hand, I think that paying the 4 health here is completely warranted.
And also he knows that there's almost certainly a 1-drop in hand, because XHope kept that Battle Mage in the mulligan. And you don't keep much apart from 1-drops and 5-4s in the mulligan in this.
And there's your 5-4, speaking of. But it comes at the cost of Rot Nest Drake. Whoa.
And this is why you were saying you don't really want to tracking this early.
It's painful, but the way XHope's hand is shaped, where he's used the coin and there's not much flexibility outside from counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at this point, and he's already got a 5-drop. I'm looking at the Fey-Wing. Granted, you can make the argument Faceless Corruptor is not necessarily a play on 5. It kind of requires you to stick a minion. So that is the reasoning here for going for the Rot Nest Drake. But it does mean that XHope's turn 4 is... I guess not entirely locked up, because if we expect him to go Diving Griffin, he will guaranteed pick up his Zixor as a playable minion on the 4-cost turn.
Yeah, and he should pick up something else in the meantime that's at least half decent as well. So he's okay-ish. Bunnyhopper's still struggling a little bit. May just be Dagger, Spy Mistress, re-Dagger here.
Well, the pickup of Miscreant makes this a little bit more interesting. He can combo it off this turn. And Blackjack Stunner is not a 0-value Shadow Step target. It's just the problem that he doesn't have a secret in the near future. Also, that play means he's not clearing off the Battle Mage immediately. So I do tend to agree that your first instinct play of the re-Dagger with the Spy Mistress looks fine here.
Looks fine. I do notice that modern rogues don't dagger very often compared to previous iterations of rogues, so it's an instinct break. You don't want to be doing it, but nothing else really looks like it makes sense.
Indeed.
Have you noticed, by the way, that Bunnyhopper has every angle of this tournament covered? It's even light in the middle of the night where he lives, because he chose to live in northern Norway.
So it's just always daytime there, isn't it?
Yep.
This time of year, at least.
Yep.
And
so
over in Christmas time, it is always nighttime, I would assume.
Yep, that's the case. So he's even got that covered. Everyone else in Europe complaining about the time zone and how they're struggling, and Bunny just has the sun all time, so it doesn't really make any difference to him.
Just never sleep.
Also an option.
Okay.
I think Sottle picks that option quite often.
Well, Bunnyhopper with the Spy Mistress, and unique benefit of that stealth means that it's almost guaranteed that he'll have a Shadow Step target to activate the Miscreant combo and finish the turn with a Lackey. And the Kobold is looking pretty juicy here, but again, he can pay for more board presence. Or rather, for more flexibility with the Lackey later on. But I think it's totally fine to take it just here as an additional 1/1 on the board.
Very interesting, the balance of, I think it's fine as well, the balance though with health total versus Hunter in particular. Taking 2 lots of 4, you would do it for the board presence, but you do start to actually feel it, whereas against some decks you don't even notice it.
Indeed. Oh, Secret finally picked up, but the Stunner is no longer available for Bunnyhopper. That would have been pretty huge, being able to delay Zixor yet another turn. Especially since we see XHope has picked up his Scavenger's Ingenuity now, and because he played Diving Griffin, after the Zixor dies, it's guaranteed to pick up the buffed Apex Predator Prime. Oh, have a Fey-Wing of your own.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Looks great here, compared to just another Miscreant Lackey turn. It does mean Bunnyhopper won't get the full clear on both of these minions, but a Fey-Wing, if you have a wide board alongside that, is very problematic for Hunter to deal with.
He does go for the Twin Tyrant, though. I think the point being that he's expecting to Togwaggle next turn and then mess around like Togwaggle does on 7.
Sure.
And then he's just got a nice 8-drop, so it fits the curve, even though it doesn't necessarily look that way.
Yeah, that's a very good point, especially since I guess Bunnyhopper's main priority is making sure that all the minions are cleared here. Overlook the fact that we were going into the 5-mana turn from XHope, and so Faceless Corruptor has to be playing on Bunnyhopper's mind here. He ends the turn with 2 Lackeys, no other minions on XHope's side of the board, and a perfect setup Togwaggle, I have to say.
And no answer here for XHope. It's going to work out nicely for Bunnyhopper. And it's a big deal that it works out nicely, because that Twin Tyrant on 8 is going to be quite likely absolutely huge. Well, turn 7 looks good.
Yes, indeed. Looks like a big Edwin after you've seen Rot Nest Drake. And yes, Bunnyhoppor will be taking 6 because the Rot Nest will stick another turn, but that is a small price to pay for the tempo swing that he can get next turn. It's like take 6 now and end the game next turn is the trade-off he's going for.
I'm really surprised he's thinking about attacking. Well, I'm not surprised, it's Bunnyhoppor. Of course he's thinking about it, but I was surprised he thought about the dagger attack at all there, because he's not re-daggering anytime soon.
Pickup of Guardian Aug Merchant is pretty big for XHope now because he gets a target that he wants to transform with Faceless Corruptor. The Divine Shield on this makes it a very easy trade onto the King Togwaggle. So he gets to at least take control of the board and make Bunnyhoppor's slow turn as big of a punish as possible, but I've seen wands come back from much stickier spots.
Let's see what the wand has to say, but you're right, there's suddenly 14 attack on the board, so the wand does need to behave itself at least here.
Oh. Okay, Kronks, but the rest are whiffs.
Wow.
I mean, he's ending the turn with a big Edwin and possibly evolving into a 7-drop, but if he doesn't hit Taunt or Rush, this is a huge problem for Bunnyhoppor. XHope, as you said, presenting 14, has Kill Command in hand, a guaranteed draw into Zixor Prime for turn 8.
And a magic green button that really hurts rogues when they're low on health.
Uh-huh.
However, if Bunnyhoppor can put out the stuff you were just saying there, the big Edwin, maybe a good evolve, or a lot of stuff anyway, maybe he can force XHope to not put all that in the face. Maybe he can force XHope to make a trade or two here.
Maybe. Bunnyhoppor going for the Mermy there. So does that mean he would rather have the 1-1 than an evolve here? I guess we still need to figure out what the average outcome of a 7-drop is currently. 6 is still pretty threatening in and of itself. Is Bunnyhoppor saying, I'm threatening a possible counter lethal if you don't take any trades here?
Super interesting now. He also decided not to backstab any of his own minions to put 2 more on the Edwin, which was a choice he consciously made.
Yes. Oh man, Varanus is not clean whatsoever here for XHope, but I think the 10-10 is a problem card that needs his attention. You could also just trade the other Corruptor into Kronks and then go face with this.
That scared me.
It is dampening his clock a little bit. The fact that he is able to draw into the Zixor Prime is a huge one. So XHope is saying, I'm going to have a slower game plan, make sure I win through board control later on. But this is such a good Twin Tyrant. You were saying it a while ago, Lorinda. I've been fully converted.
Yeah, Bunnyhoppor just, obviously he didn't know quite how perfect it would be, but I think it was fair for him to predict he would have some kind of board and he'd be up against a minion or two at this stage. I think that was just really good vision, taking his time to have a look how the board looks in his mind eye 3 or 4 turns from now, and it just worked out perfectly for him, and XHope just can't believe it.
His reaction was so telling there. XHope was saying, I made the sacrifice of trading off Bunnyhoppor's minions so I could maintain board control because Bunnyhoppor's answers would be pretty limited. He saw 1 Blackjack Stunner, but it's really difficult to account for a generated dragon there. One of the few that have a battle cry that immediately impact the board.
Yeah, there's also sometimes that feeling, have I just been a little bit outwitted here? I'm not saying he's done anything wrong, but when you're in that position and your opponent does it, you do sometimes wonder, yes, I'm unlucky that he's got it, but also, did he just get me here, from that turn onwards? And that's not a nice feeling in the middle of a tournament.
It's a fair point. And because he didn't have the time alongside, or rather the mana alongside Varanus to play the Scavenger's Ingenuity, it's going to have to be this turn that XHope bites the bullet, and I'm expecting just a Dragonbane to come down and essentially serve as a decoy on this turn. Doesn't have very many good targets, but he is preferring to send some of the damage face, which somewhat unlocks options for emergency switch lethal next turn if the Zixor is not enough to deal with Bunnyhoppor, whatever Bunnyhoppor presents. Although I would be hesitant to say that 6/6s, 4 of them with Rush, would ever be insufficient to come back on a board state.
Well, Dragonbane, Hero Power, everything face does actually win next turn if the Dragonbane wins like a 1 in 7 or whatever it's going to be. So XHope technically following the fireback rule of always set up lethal.
Yeah, it is that emergency switch that he set up for himself. And I guess he's also taking into account the fact that he's seen Kronks. Therefore, Rogue's burst ability with the Galakrond he knows is in hand is very limited. No eviscerates in the deck for Bunnyhoppor, and most of the generated cards he's already seen. There's just a Lackey there, which is the unaccounted for variable from XHope's perspective. Bunnyhoppor gonna take his 1-cost card here.
Puts himself out of lethal range just for what it's worth as well. So we are going to see the Zixor Prime try and deal with the board, which is obviously what we expected.
Ready for King Crush, Lorinda? Not quite.
Kind of the opposite. He's got Shadow Step.
Oh, Unleash?
Wow.
He can't fit in everything he wants to do to try and look for lethal here. And even then, it would involve taking a 50-50 on the Jiraxis, I think. So it's just going to be the plan A of Zixor Prime, I fully expect. Bunnyhoppor did take the time to set up that ambush and give himself as best a possible answer for the Prime that he knows is in hand. But XHope has this weapon to bonk it away.
Yeah, what's he going to do about this Jiraxis? I think you have to ignore it.
Yeah, it's just 3 attack.
Yeah. And then it's not going to happen for any time soon, but there is that legitimate option to Shadow Step it at some point if it's just there for the whole game.
That would be amazing, Lorinda.
Haven't seen a Jiraxis since I were a wee lad, and that's a long time ago.
I would have to hazard a guess that in this board state, the Jiraxis would not really be, I guess it's not alive anymore, but if it were Shadow Stepped, it would not be for the purpose of getting the infinite value. It would be for that weapon to try and just kill XHope over a couple of turns, but that option is no longer available there for Bunnyhoppor, and now he needs to look for lethal this turn because I'm not seeing a good way to deal with these Zixor Primes. Maybe if he can generate a Betrayal. He has some lackeys that he can get this turn.
I think he has to go through the lackey process. The crazy Zixor Prime has managed to get it done. I think Bunnyhoppor got a bit unfortunate with rolling Jiraxis, joking aside, because it doesn't kill off any of these. If he just gets a 6-6, at least he kills one off.
Yep. And I was initially surprised by XHope's decision to trade off, but he was actually not removing that much more damage if he just traded into all of the lackeys and the Mermaid Reborn.
He's big enough picking up the Rush Lackey and the Shadow Step. How much stuff can Bunnyhoppor do, and can he do it quickly enough? Because he is on the clock here. He
can rush the Reborn, but I think there's still going to be 2 Zixors surviving this turn. Or if he's going to remove a third, it's going to involve face tanking the 6.
He's close to the rope as well.
Yeah, it's just not there. And that is going to be a clean GG for XHope. 18 on the board. Kill command to remove the taunt, or whichever way he wants to go about it.
Yeah, so many ways of doing this. Whichever one he sees first will be the way. Let's see if XHope relaxes a little bit now. He's looked very, very tense to me throughout this whole match so far.
Yeah, his reactions have been palpable, especially when he's not getting the draws he hoped for, or fails to take into account the possibility for a twin Tyrant. And I have to say that it's not his fault whatsoever, but as you mentioned, that one turn, it did just kind of feel like you got. And Bunnyhoppor was planning that from the get-go. I was talking about how good evasive Feywing that turn looked, but Bunnyhoppor had the curve planned out very soon. I did like XHope's decisions there throughout the majority of the game, though, but ultimately it was that turn where he traded into the Edwin and to the Kronks and saying that I am going to delay my lethal plan if I can just get these Ixors online. There's not much Rogue can do about it, and it worked out for him in the end as well.
Yeah, and Bunnyhoppor actually played the Galacon that turn. He could have gone quite wide. I'm not saying it was wrong, but that was ultimately rolling Jiraxis was the problem. But it was ultimately the thing that stopped him getting wide enough to be able to deal with all that. But I think he had every cause to believe he was just going to win the game. So just didn't work out, didn't draw the damage he needed, which wasn't much. And now he's going to have to play it again.
Yes, indeed. Versus either XHope's Shaman or the Demon Hunter. I really hope we get to see the Shaman. I've not cast Shaman yet for this tournament. Whereas the one time I think somebody had it, it got banned away, which just completely blew my mind. But it is kind of an X factor.
It's a very low curve version as well.
So if we're talking about potentially running into Shaman, the secret version of Rogue, I feel, has not very much to gain from ambushes. I guess because Shaman won't be playing that many natural minions as opposed to hero powering here and there. But you did mention this is a low curve version, so there is that set of 1-drops in there, Surging Tempest being the most annoying one to deal with for its cost.
Yeah, none of these cards look any good at all until you suddenly see them all smashing you in the face on like turn 3, and suddenly they look fantastic. Just getting one totem buffed and split is usually enough to get you the board for the entire game, unless you're facing a deck with a lot of AoE, which Rogue is not, let's face it.
It really isn't, but these minions that XHope has to stick early on are the way that he'll earn the right to actually hero power and not fall too behind because of it. And so if you want to stick these 1-drops against Rogue, I think it heavily relies on XHope getting Beaming Sidekick alongside, for example, this Blazing Battle Mage that's already in hand.
This is where it's nice to meet XHope on the quarterfinals, not in round 9. Bunnyhoppor or his friends or whoever has had all night to work out exactly how to mulligan for this nonsense.
Indeed. I think Backstab is going to be premium. Seal Fate is interesting as well. It's a great removal spell. I have to say the Miscreant, of course, is premium in this matchup as well, because it's actually one of the few matchups where the 1 attack 4 health stat line can challenge things. And of course, it generates possibility for Kobold Lackey, Goblin Lackey, a single one of which just entirely lock out the Shaman's early game.
Bunnyhoppor, I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking at his own deck list there, to work out his own number of outs and good things he can pick up. But yeah, he's just gone for trusting in this and got the absolute perfect pickup here.
Yes, the Surging Tempest off the top, huge. And also the fact that he has Beaming Sidekick to make it a bit more durable. Right now, XHope is not really on a totem game plan so much as a zoo game plan. The magic carpet in there could also incentivize XHope to maybe hold on to some of these 1-drops, of course, depending on what he gets off the top. But Bunnyhoppor, again, presented with that possibility of playing just a stunner on 1, but I really don't like the look of that here when he has the secret in hand and when XHope can pretty easily get a value trade if there's even one overload card for him.
Yeah, looks like this stunner is going to actually be a big deal here, because I think XHope has to proceed as if that's not going to happen, although Bunny keeping 3 might actually tip XHope off, even though it wasn't the stunner that he kept, if that makes sense. He may think it's the stunner that was kept. So he might not go too all in on the sidekick, might choose to split the buff a little bit, that's what he does.
Yeah. Surging Tempest at the 3 health is already threatening by itself because it doesn't just die to Backstab. It would take Backstab Dagger or Coin Seal Fate. And the Coin Seal Fate option doesn't look very great for Bunnyhoppor here, I have to say. But also, if you go Secret Stunner, then assuming that he stuns the 2/4, the stunner's just dead on board to the other minions. So my head is going towards Miscreant. But it's these 2 Shadow Steps in hand that could make all the difference, because suddenly Bunnyhoppor is able to bounce back 2 1-drops, leave just the sidekick, and that is enormous.
Yeah, suddenly they're not 1-drops anymore, and XHope's not happy about this at all. Actually, he's checked himself in this one.
I mean, he could even go for the full suite of Shadow Step, but because he has Miscreant without a combo activator on the next turn, if he does that, it's looking a little sketchy. Yeah, I like holding on to one of them.
But this deck relies on getting the board and keeping it like immediately. It doesn't get the board back basically ever. So this is the turn where XHope needs to get as much tempo as he can, and really 3 is not the magic number right now.
You're absolutely right. The best comeback mechanism for this Shaman is the weapon they have, and we've seen that Splitting Axe just be a Fiery War Axe many times in that week of GM when everybody was playing Shaman and Paladin. Ambush also is the one that XHope was wishing it wasn't the ideal secret there for Bunnyhoppor to go on top of his pretty much ideal tempo swing turn. But yeah, it's even more board presence. XHope's 1-drops are not 1-drops right now, so it can't combo with the carpet, and that is close to lights out, I have to say, even as early as now.
Yeah, that backstab in particular has just about sealed XHope's fate, because you just don't get back from this, because the Rogue's 2-3s and 1-4s and things are big enough to just take down all your minions one at a time.
Yeah, Bunnyhoppor can pretty much go on autopilot from this point out, and if Bunnyhoppor takes less than 10 seconds to do a turn, you know he's in a great spot.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, and XHope not out
going
of it
for
completely, but yeah.
Trying to preserve some of his minions by going for the attack on them. If he can take a trade onto the 2/2 poison, that's a big one, because he really just wants that off the board to maybe sit for one turn.
But even without thinking about the turn, Seal Fate Lackey looks really good. Kobold Lackey looks really good. And that's why I've even engaged the bit of my brain that works.
I could also see Seal Fate and Titanic instead to take a value trade. Either line is a very easy avenue to victory, I have to say. There's also a dagger possibility.
Yeah, you can Titanic Lackey the ambush token in some lines and just do that twice and make it huge. So many options available here.
XHope's reaction says it all. Bunnyhoppor wants to play 3 1-drops. There's just not a punish for it either. It's not like there's any AoE in this Shaman. The most they have for removal aside from that axe is Guardian Og Merchant, which if they're playing that to deal the win 1 Lackey, you're totally happy.
Bunny, stop, he's already dead, springs to mind right now with this backstab pickup. Like, you didn't need that, Bunnyhoppor. That's just unfair now.
Bunnyhoppor's one worry, I suppose, is a carpet blowout to try and reset the board state, but he knows he has that poison. So at the very least, I was interested at buffing the health on that a little bit, but even so, this carpet can be dealt with between the Seal Fate and Kobold Lackey and the trades on board.
Yeah, and sort of joking and memeing aside, this Seal Fate was a card that was very easy to waste earlier on, but he's managed to keep it for the optimal damage on this turn. So the little things do matter. We'd only have done 2 damage.
What were you saying? Bunny, stop, he's already dead?
Yeah. Fair enough.
Looks like it could evolve. Not immediately. But since he's seen a carpet, the only way XHope is actually dealing with that outside of the second carpet is by face tanking 5, which is also a win for Bunnyhoppor. I just feel like every scenario we can lay out from after the Blackjack Stunner Shadow Step turn happened, every scenario has just looked like a win for Bunnyhoppor.
Yeah, the second you start getting... Because the Shaman minions are so tiny, the second you start doing anything that represents a board, and this doesn't represent a board in normal Hearthstone for 1/1s, but you can see how damaging it's going to be. It's just going to allow Bunnyhoppor to take over the game.
Have another Seal Fate, why don't you? I guess the only criticism I might have of Bunnyhoppor's hand is the possibility that he doesn't pick up any gas for the next couple turns. This is looking very slow, and he might not deal lethal immediately. But the thing is, even if it's just death by 1,000 cuts, it's not a problem for Bunnyhoppor, because as long as he clears the board every single turn, XHope doesn't have a comeback mechanism. Against other decks in the meta, if you give them additional time by not dealing lethal while you have that big advantage somehow, and sometimes they can cheese you out with Zephyrus, with AoE spells. It's just not a thing for Shaman.
Next turn he has make a totem, totemic reflection, swing with the weapon. Great.
Wonderful.
He'll have 2 minions and kill a minion. Hooray! Is Bunny still going? Like, this turn seems to be going for like 15 minutes.
It did feel like it, yeah. But, I mean, the big thing is that he held on to Seal Fate, knowing that all of the minions that XHope had that board could just die to value trades. So he is just holding out for the possibility of a totemic reflection type board, where in those cases, those are minions that have attack. And so he wanted to deal fate. Not good enough though, but XHope has picked up his second magic carpet. Can that give him any measure or glimmer of hope?
It's gonna have to be pretty magical carpet, I think, for it to do that, but yes, it's better than not having it. 5 1/1s. There's more each turn.
Okay, that's a way to start killing XHope, but if he plays questing, won't necessarily... Oh, actually, he can deal with everything, my bad. Even if it involves ramming 4 1/1s into a 2/4, I think it's totally fine. And he has a chance to pick up yet another Lackey, make this a bit cleaner for himself.
Almost every Lackey is just good here. That's one of the ones that isn't quite so good here, I guess. Maybe it will be. Just get another backstab. He'll be fine.
I'm looking at the praise here instead to maybe give you one more 1/1 on board after all the trades go through.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I guess playing a 1/1 gives you another 1/1 after everything is said and done. So similar board state in the end. Oh, yikes. Questing out of range of the splitting axe.
Now we're just into arena mode, I think. Nobody's got anything that does anything, but Bunnyhoppor's got the better future.
I have to argue with that. I think questing adventure does a whole lot of everything in this situation.
It does now. This next turn is just going to be finally the proper beginning of the end.
I don't think there's a way to piece together lethal just yet for Bunnyhoppor, but he can once again deal with the board, which is essentially lethal for Shaman, you know?
Yeah. Because it's never going to deal with this. There's no hex or anything. There's no space for something like that in this deck, so Bunnyhoppor can just afford to keep trading while this gets to 15-15 and then win that turn. Which would be the most boring thing I've ever seen, but we might not see it.
I mean, this is one off, right? If he goes Dragon Horde, Kobold, Lackey. Sure, Takeomer is on so you can play your opponent's garbage as well.
Yeah, the only way he ever loses this game is if XHope does something crazy, so why not copy it? I understand. You have no totems. That's why it doesn't work. Oh, I wanted to see him trade into the 1/3. I think it was right.
Both lines were right, Lorinda. There's just no way XHope was ever coming back from that spot, especially with both splitting axe played. But that is a very one-sided result of that match. Very reminiscent, I have to say, of Grandmasters Season 1 of 2020, week number 3, where the Shamans were out to play, but I would say that first couple turns of that matchup and any Shaman matchup determine whether Shaman has any chance for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and a lot of that was just going through the motions after the stunners. So there were a couple of turns where maybe XHope could turn it around if Bunnyhoppor had a handful of, I don't know, Galacrons or something. But
plural Galacrons.
handful of Galacrons to play around. I don't know. Yeah, just a slow grind. That one leaves him with the Quest Warlock. So XHope still has a chance, but we've seen Demon Hunter against Quest Warlock going really struggling for options. Like rushing out a Magtheridon seems to be about the only option you have. And I think the Shaman versus all this AoE is just going to struggle.
Yeah, at first glance, I would think so as well. When we were laying out the matchups at the very beginning of this series, you picked out the Hunter as the one where Shaman might possibly sneak a win through. I was thinking it's more likely against Quest Warlock, actually, but that's not going off any data. It's just through my theoretical understanding of the matchup, which is for Quest Warlock, they don't want to be removing just hero-powered totems. And so if you're up against an opponent that is likely to panic a lot and overcommit removal into not your in board just yet, then that can be a way to sneak in wins. But against Bunnyhoppor, hard to see that happening as well. I'm sure that XHope has a lot on his plate to try and build boards that would warrant removal but aren't dead super conveniently to just a single Dark Skies, for example.
Yeah, Totemic Might goes a long way towards solving some of the problems you just highlighted there, though. If you can Totemic Might and start getting extra totems at the same time, then suddenly Dark Skies gets well out of range. You're out of range of most of the other things apart from the Nether Breath at that point, or maybe a Soulfire.
And even then, if Nether Breath onto a hero power totem, that's a win for the Shaman, I would say.
Yeah, so this start might be the start that XHope was looking for, at least to some degree.
Yeah, if that Sludge Slurper were a Surging Tempest instead, so that unlocks an avenue for hyper aggression in the early game. However, though, he has Sludge Slurpers and the kept Totemic Might you were talking about alongside Totemic Surge. So I feel that this looks like a stall towards your splitting axe turn and then go all in push.
That's what it looks like he's going to do. Meanwhile, Bunnyhoppor already has 3 removal cards in hand. Not necessarily the right ones or in order, but he does have them.
Yep.
And 4. Turns out this deck plays a lot of removal, who knew?
It's removal in very discrete amounts of damage, though, that XHope can be aware of what options are available on what mana point for Bunnyhoppor. But it's not like he has a choice to just completely play nothing here, because then Bunnyhoppor can just freely tap. I even have to think about, do I use some removal here because it's dealing too much damage?
I think what you said, though, about the discrete sort of increments of damage is a big deal for why Quest Warlock isn't quite the deck saviour that everyone thought it was when it first got released. People have learned to play around various things that it does.
I have to agree. There's, of course, certain combinations of cards that you won't always account for, like if they have the Moar Grain into Dark Skies, something like that. But, ooh, Totemic Reflection is a big pickup for XHope, because now, even though he doesn't have a totem card, he can start hero powering and working towards that big turn of development that we were talking about. There's still one piece of the puzzle missing, though, which is the Splitting Axe.
It is, but he can challenge Bunnyhoppor every turn. Like, here's a totem, do you want to kill it? Here's a totem, do you want to kill it? And the big turn is big enough that he can afford to wait a little while before doing that, I think.
Right. It's also a huge deal that he was the one on the coin this matchup, so he can stay not too afraid to just hero power past this turn, because the Crazed Netherwing is not yet available for Bunnyhoppor. And on the turn when it is available, that's when he can start buffing the health on things. It's a question, though, of whether he wants to commit, say, Guardian Augmerchant this turn to create a little bit more board presence and be somewhat resistant to Dark Skies. Sorry, to Rain of Fire. It's not resistant to Dark Skies at all. You end up with the same amount of health on board.
Yeah, it's really annoying every time I try to do that. Every single time I play it, usually the Demon Hunter against Warlock, it's like, yeah, I've got the Org Merchant, this will help against the Dark Skies, and then, no, it really won't.
Speaking of, Moarg Rain of Fire, see you later, is an option for Bunnyhoppor right now.
Very much so. I wonder what he's going to do with his plot twist. If he goes for the play you highlighted there, which makes a lot of sense because there are 2 Bloodlusts in XHope's deck, so this is actually a worrisome board to leave up. But if he goes for that, his plot twist gets so much worse.
Yeah. And he also misses a tap and floats a mana if he goes for that line of play. The Bloodlust is a consideration, like you were speaking about, but it isn't necessarily lethal next turn.
Yeah, he hasn't got it next turn anyway because he is overloaded for 1, so...
However, we could be overthinking here because ending the turn with a minion on board and none on the Shaman side is just a recipe for victory against this deck, especially since Bunnyhoppor possibly has Crazed Netherwing to follow up and just chain AoEs.
Yep, has that available. Also possibly has just a questing adventurer available with even a Soulfire in some situations, just to keep it exactly the same way he played the last game and just forget about everything else the deck's supposed to do.
I did forget about the Death Rattle on that 2/2 there. It's the one that summons a 1/1 spell damage +1. Not a huge deal though for Bunnyhoppor, I would say.
I was looking forward to seeing what it did as well.
So XHope can remove the Moarg with a trade and Guardian Og Merchant if he likes. He's picked up the Splitting Axe now, so it's become a... I think what XHope's actually thinking about this turn more so than whether he clears the Moarg is how he's going to portion out all of these combo pieces. Do they all come together on one turn? When he hits 6 mana, he can coin them out all together, but then he would still have to stick a totem in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all about next turn, really, when he's got all of his mana available again. Oh, and he's going for this way.
I see.
This is cool.
Yeah, I like this. Very cool that the totem heals itself up anyway, so it's essentially just a free Divine Shield. Gives XHope the best possible chance of sticking this healing totem, which then he can start going off with the Reflection, with the Surge, the Might, and the Splitting Axe.
Yeah, and Bunnyhoppor needs to be careful because not only is what you just said really bad, but some of those variants have Divine Shields on them, so definitely has to deal with this.
But unfortunately for XHope, it was the perfect 6 health, including the Divine Shield as 1 health, to deal with by Dark Skies.
You say unfortunately, he could have played his Totemic Might there.
It's a good point. Yeah.
Like, that would have got it out of range. Okay, there's other things that could deal with it, but it depends how he saw that panning out, and I feel that that may have been a mistake.
Yeah, XHope could have committed that extra card there to make sure that Bunnyhoppor's clear would have to be a 2-card combo instead of just the 1 Dark Skies. Definitely worth thinking about. Good spot there.
Obviously, the other side of it is he wouldn't have a Totemic Might for a board he was dreaming of, which would be 3 or 4 totems, which is obviously a massive deal if he gets it going. But I know.
Right.
He did all the hard work in setting it up. Maybe just go 1 card further.
Well, the fact that the Flame Tongue came off the top there, I think XHope didn't necessarily have to be too greedy with the Totemic Might, because after you get the health on the first minion, as long as it sticks, you copy it anyway. So it's like you're maintaining the health on that, barring possibilities for Bunnyhoppor to partially damage totems. Might be getting a bit too deep in the tank there, but yeah, I would also hesitantly say that could have been done better from XHope.
And now Bunnyhoppor has a lot of things going his way. It's not over. As long as XHope has this weird combo in hand, it's not completely over. But the Parrot Man, promoted General Crag, is doing a lot of work here.
I mean, when Questlock has kind of a zoo-like board presence against you, that's when you know it's getting really bad. Because even the deck that's meant to be combos, it's meant to be removal, they have 3 minions of a small size able to easily trade down your totems.
And more to come as well.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, yeah.
It was another situation where he could have played Totemic Might, but it looked a lot worse here because the Parrot could still just trade down one of the 2 4s.
I think we might see prediction of the decade here, but I think we might see a long Bunnyhoppor think here. Because now he has to think about how he's going to win the game. He's worked out how to not lose it and how to take control. Yeah. Now it's just looking for that final blow.
And I think it largely involves quest completion, so he can have the Sense Demons, tap Plot Twist turn if he wants it.
What if he's just looking to put a 2/4 on the board?
Against the weapon in hand, I'd be a little hesitant to say.
I think he is too.
This looks like as good as any of a plot twist that he's gonna get, but
Yeah.
if the game plan is just have board presence, wow, good spot learned.
Yeah, it's just like I watched the Rogue game and thought, okay, he's just going to play all of his small minions again, isn't he? Apart from maybe Zephrys, because he just dies to everything.
I got you, friend.
I was very interested in plot twist because he could have picked up Crazy Netherwing again with a dragon this time after that hand is done, but Bunnyhoppor is saying with just the 3 attack weapon, you need to commit a lackey as well to deal with the 2/4. It's asking for quite a lot, and so he kind of preloads the AoE somewhat by playing this Moarg. Dark
So
Skies can make quick work of this.
14, 16. Yes, it is. Is it? Has he got 10 cards in hand?
He can
Oh, he
trade
bumps into the 1/2.
Yeah, the 1/2 first.
Yeah, that's a really big deal. Or he can tap, obviously, yeah. It's a really big deal because he now gets to keep his Twisting Nether in case, for some reason, XHope has another build-up of that sort of turn.
Dark Skies into plot twist looks premium here for me.
Yeah, it does to me too. I do wonder if he just won't even plot twist because he has the Nether in hand, but he probably will.
Maybe. I mean, he has the Nether and the Dragon now as well, so for the Nether wing.
That dies to the weapon, so we might not see this play.
Your wish is my suggestion.
Wow, it is just the opposite of what you would normally see Quest Warlock go for, which is just plot twist at any given possible opportunity. But Bunnyhoppor sees that if you just move every single minion, you don't even need the quest completion to get there against this deck. It's
So
not winning the game by winning the game, it's by making your opponent lose the game.
Yep, yeah, you just win by hitting with an Alex for 8 3 times at some point or whatever. Bunny using his Zephrys as an acidic Swampoo's there, basically, because XHope had to kill it. Right,
It really
silly...
makes me wonder what the shaman is doing that we've not been seeing on stream, but it looks so similar to what's just been happening in that early week of GM.
I think beating Hunter.
Okay.
Like, the stats are kind of in its favour just about, at least on replay. So I'll have a quick look now. Just bear with me while we have a look what the stats are.
No problem. That sounds about right, though. Especially since Hunter is so widely represented.
Oh, it's really hard. Shaman hasn't been beating Hunter, but most of the Shamans aren't this. They're mostly Evolve, I think, so...
Ah, yes. With the Box Rock Knuckles. Notice that Bunnyhoppor went for the twist without the tap there because 1, his quest is completed anyway, and 2, if he could get a playable minion alongside this Netherwing, I'm pretty sure he would just go for it.
Yeah, XHope's face tells you who's winning this game of Hearthstone. I feel a bit sorry for him because he hasn't had a good season in the Gold Team League, so this was his chance. He's got to the top 8 out of 326 players or something.
Right.
This is his chance to show, you know, the viewers back home, look, I'm still here, I'm playing great, and despite the fact he went 8-1, all they're seeing is him get beat again.
I do think he's been playing pretty well. It's just this deck that is a huge question mark for me. On the Demon Hunter gameplay, he did get a little bit unlucky, I would say, without having hit the Consume Magic early enough. And I did like the lines that he ended up taking with the hand he was given. But this Shaman, I feel it doesn't have much of a chance for a good player to shine.
The problem is, what you just said, is the criticism he's been getting back home is that he's bringing bad decks too often. So this is, I suspect this is why he looks so depressed that he's going out after a good tournament.
Is that criticism from the Chinese casters?
From the
Or-
viewers in general, just how
I see.
people are, just people things.
Definitely plays on your mind there. But we can't make too small of a deal of the achievements that XHope has had. He's been in the scene for a very long time, as early as 2015, 2016. I was hearing of that name, and to make it to a top 8 all the way now in 2020 means that we can't about him anytime soon. But Bunnyhoppor was taking a nap at the end there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, if you're Bunnyhoppor, you must have very different ways to doing things to the rest of the world, because that's what makes you Bunnyhoppor. But yet another top 4 for Bunnyhoppor. That's 3 Grandmasters now into that top 4, with only 1 match remaining. And that 1 match does have a Grandmaster in it, as you can see there, Gia.
Letta versus Justin. Letta being a former teammate of Bunnyhoppor, I actually think. And so those 2 players, if they face off against each other, should Letta take the win over Justin, could be a battle of friends, and interesting to see. But the way that the pattern has been going so far, it looks like all of the GMs have been doing really well here. So we could see Taean take that win too.
So without much further ado, let's try and get that one set up. We saw the support for Piñas from Italy in the last tournament. I wonder what sort of support Letta's going to get against Just Saying. We'll find out in just 3 minutes. See you then.